My wife quit her job, cheated on me, and tried to blame me for everything. So I divorced her and did this. Now she wants to come back. I never imagined I'd be sharing my story on Reddit, but here I am. The past year has been a whirlwind of emotions, and I need to get this off my chest. It all began at my elder sister's baby shower. That's where I met Rose, my sister's best friend's distant cousin. She was stunning, with long dark hair and bright green eyes that seemed to light up when she smiled. As we talked, Rose confessed that she'd always had a crush on me. I was taken aback, but flattered. We exchanged numbers that day, and soon after, we started texting regularly. Our conversations flowed effortlessly, covering everything from our favorite books to our dreams for the future. After a week of nonstop texting, I finally worked up the courage to ask her out on a date. Our first date was at a quaint coffee shop downtown. I remember being nervous, my palms sweaty, as I waited for her to arrive. But the moment she walked in, all my nerves disappeared. She ordered a vanilla latte, and I couldn't help but smile at how adorable she looked with a foam mustache. We talked for hours, losing track of time until the barista politely informed us they were closing. That first date led to many more. We went to art galleries, tried new restaurants, and spent lazy Sundays binge-watching our favorite TV shows. One of my favorite memories from our dating days was a spontaneous road trip we took to the coast. Rose suggested it on a Friday evening, and within an hour, we were on the road with nothing but a hastily packed overnight bag. We spent the weekend walking on the beach, trying local seafood, and watching the sunset from a cliff overlooking the ocean. It felt like something out of a movie. Another time, Rose surprised me with tickets to see my favorite band. She wasn't even a fan herself, but wanted to share the experience with me. I was touched by her thoughtfulness and how she went out of her way to make me happy. As the months passed, I found myself falling deeply in love with Rose. She was fun, spontaneous, and seemed to bring out the best in me. After a year of dating filled with moments like these, I knew I wanted to spend the rest of my life with her. I spent weeks planning the perfect proposal. I wanted it to be memorable, something that would show Rose how much she meant to me. I finally decided to propose during a hot air balloon ride at sunrise. I was a bundle of nerves as we ascended into the sky, the world below us bathed in soft golden light. When we reached the perfect height, with the city spread out beneath us like a miniature model, I got down on one knee, as much as one can in a hot air balloon basket, and asked Rose to marry me. Her eyes filled with tears as she said yes, and in that moment, I felt like the luckiest man in the world. We got married 6 months later in a small ceremony, surrounded by our closest friends and family. Rose looked breathtaking in her white dress, and I couldn't believe that this amazing woman was about to become my wife. As we exchanged vows, I was certain that I had found my happily ever after. However, cracks in our relationship started to show soon after the honeymoon. I've always been conservative with money, planning for the future and hoping for an early retirement. Rose, on the other hand, was a big spender. She'd shop for new clothes every week, insist on eating out at expensive restaurants, and seemed to have a new hobby and all the expensive equipment that came with it every month. At first, I didn't think much of it. I chalked it up to post-wedding excitement and figured things would settle down once we got into the rhythm of married life. But as the weeks turned into months, Rose's spending habits didn't change. If anything, they got worse. Things got more complicated when Rose told me she wanted to quit her job. We were having dinner one night when she casually mentioned that she was thinking about leaving her position at the marketing firm where she worked. I was taken aback. We had discussed our future plans before marriage, and both agreed that we'd continue working to build a secure future. I tried to reason with her, explaining how her income was crucial for our financial goals. "But don't you want me to be happy?" she asked, her eyes welling up with tears. I felt like I was being manipulated, but I didn't want to upset her further. I suggested we revisit the conversation in a few months, hoping she might change her mind. But Rose didn't drop the subject. Every few days, she'd bring up quitting her job again. She started talking about wanting to try for children, saying she wanted to be a stay-at-home mom. I wasn't ready for kids yet. We had only been married for a few months, and I wanted us to be more financially stable before taking on the responsibility of parenthood. This led to several arguments, with Rose accusing me of not caring about her desires, and me feeling like she was disregarding our mutual plans. The warm, loving relationship we had enjoyed while dating seemed to be slipping away, replaced by tension and resentment. A few months into our marriage, I noticed Rose wasn't going to work some days. At first, she said she was taking sick leave. I was concerned and asked if everything was okay, but she assured me it was just a bit of a flu going around the office. However, when I casually mentioned it to one of her coworkers at a party, I was shocked to learn that Rose had quit her job weeks ago. I confronted Rose about it that night. "Why didn't you discuss this with me?" I asked, feeling betrayed and confused. Rose got emotional. "I want a baby," she cried. "I'm at my prime for having children. Why can't you understand that?" I was stunned. Not only had Rose quit her job without telling me, but she was also pushing the baby issue again. I tried to explain that I wasn't against having children. I just wanted us to be in a better financial position first. But Rose wouldn't listen. She accused me of being selfish and not considering her feelings. To make matters worse, Rose's mother started calling me regularly, pressuring me to support Rose's decision. It felt like I was being ganged up on by my own family. Rose's mother would guilt-trip me, saying things like, "Don't you want my daughter to be happy?" and "You're crushing her dreams of being a mother." I felt cornered and misunderstood. As if the job situation wasn't stressful enough, I also noticed that Rose's spending had increased dramatically. She joined expensive yoga classes, went on shopping sprees, and seemed to be withdrawing large amounts from our joint account without discussing it with me. One day, I noticed a particularly large withdrawal from our account. When I asked Rose about it, she claimed her mother needed money urgently. I was angry that she hadn't discussed it with me first. It was our joint account, after all. This led to another argument, with Rose accusing me of not trusting her and me feeling like she was taking advantage of our shared finances. Feeling like I was losing control of our finances, I made a decision that I'm not proud of. I opened a separate account and started saving my money there. To justify the reduced deposits into our joint account, I told Rose that many employees at my company, including me, had received pay cuts due to the company's financial struggles. It was a lie, and I felt guilty about it, but I felt like I had no other choice to protect our financial future. Despite these issues, I still loved Rose and wanted to make our marriage work. I suggested we go to couples counseling, but Rose refused, saying we didn't need a stranger telling us how to fix our marriage. I felt helpless and increasingly isolated. Then came the day that shattered my world completely. My close friend John, whose wife attended the same yoga class as Rose, pulled me aside at a party. He looked uncomfortable and avoided my eyes as he spoke. "I don't know how to tell you this," he said, "but I think Rose is cheating on you with her yoga instructor." I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. At first I didn't want to believe it. Rose, who had pursued me, who had seemed so in love with me, cheating. It seemed impossible. But as John shared more details, the lingering touches, the private sessions after class, the way they looked at each other, a sick feeling grew in my stomach. I didn't confront Rose immediately. Instead, I started paying more attention, noticing things I had overlooked before. The late-night texts she'd quickly hide when I entered the room. The sudden increase in girls' nights out that always seemed to coincide with her yoga instructor's day off. The new lingerie I found in her drawer that she had never worn for me. One night, when Rose was in the shower, I did something I never thought I'd do. I checked her phone. What I found made me feel sick. There were dozens of explicit messages between her and the yoga instructor, dating back months. There were even plans for a weekend getaway conveniently scheduled for when I was supposed to be on a business trip. I didn't stop there. I accessed her Google Drive and found a folder full of intimate photos and videos of her with the yoga instructor. It was like a knife twisting in my chest. Each image, each video was another blow to my heart and to the trust I had in our marriage. I spent the next few days in a daze, trying to process what I had discovered. I went through a range of emotions: anger, hurt, disbelief, and a deep, overwhelming sadness. The woman I had loved, the woman I had married, had betrayed me in the worst possible way. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. I had to confront her. I waited until we were both home one evening. Rose was sitting on the couch, scrolling through her phone with a small smile on her face. I wondered if she was texting him right then. "Rose," I said, my voice shaking slightly, "we need to talk." She looked up, her expression changing from contentment to concern when she saw my face. "What's wrong?" she asked. I took a deep breath. "I know about the affair," I said quietly. Rose's face went pale. For a moment, she just stared at me, her mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. Then she tried to deny it. "What are you talking about?" she asked, her voice high and panicky. "There's no affair. How could you even think that? But I wasn't going to let her lie her way out of this. I told her about the messages I had seen, the photos and videos I had found. With each piece of evidence I mentioned, I saw her crumble a little more. Finally, when I had laid it all out, Rose broke down. She started sobbing, admitting to the affair. But then, to my disbelief, she tried to blame me. "It's because you never give me any attention," she cried. "You won't let me be a mother. You're always working or worried about money. He made me feel wanted, appreciated." I was beyond angry. I felt betrayed, used, and utterly foolish. All those times I'd been working late to secure our future, she'd been in another man's arms. All those expensive yoga classes I'd paid for, thinking I was supporting her health and happiness, had been facilitating her affair. "Get out," I told her, my voice shaking with anger and hurt. "Pack your bags and leave, now." Rose tried to argue, to explain, to beg for another chance, but I was done listening. I watched in stony silence as she packed her bags, tears streaming down her face. As she reached the door, she turned back one last time. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I never meant for this to happen." I didn't respond. I simply closed the door behind her, slid down to the floor, and let my own tears fall. The days that followed were a blur. I called in sick to work, unable to face the world. I alternated between crying and feeling numb. I kept replaying moments from our relationship in my head, wondering if there were signs I had missed, clues that could have prepared me for this betrayal. My family and friends rallied around me. My sister, the one whose baby shower was where I first met Rose, was particularly supportive. She spent hours on the phone with me, letting me vent and cry when I needed to. John and his wife brought over meals and offered to help with anything I needed. As the initial shock wore off, I started to feel angry. Angry at Rose for betraying me. Angry at myself for not seeing it sooner. Angry at the yoga instructor for pursuing a married woman. I wanted to confront him, to punch him in the face, but I knew that wouldn't solve anything. Instead, I channeled my anger into action. I started researching divorce lawyers, determined to protect myself and my assets. I gathered all the evidence I had of Rose's infidelity, knowing it would be crucial in the divorce proceedings. Now, as I sit here typing this, I'm still trying to process everything that's happened. The woman I loved, the future I'd planned, it's all gone. I feel angry, hurt, and incredibly stupid. How did I not see the signs? How could I have been so blind? I don't know what the future holds, but I know one thing for certain. I deserve better than this. I deserve someone who respects me, who shares my values, and who wouldn't betray me like this. If you've read this far, thank you for listening to my story. Any advice or words of support would be greatly appreciated. I'm not sure where to go from here, but I know I need to start picking up the pieces of my life. Update. It's been a week since Rose moved out of our rented house, and what a week it's been. The past 7 days have been a whirlwind of emotions and activities, and I feel like I've aged years in just a week. First, let me talk about the constant barrage of threats I've been receiving from my in-laws. They've been calling me nonstop, leaving angry voicemails, and even sending threatening text messages. At first, they were just demanding that I take Rose back, saying I was overreacting to a small mistake. But as the days passed and it became clear I wasn't going to change my mind, their messages became more aggressive. Rose's father threatened to ruin my career if I didn't reconcile with his daughter. Her mother alternated between guilt-tripping me and hurling insults. Even Rose's siblings got in on the act, sending me long, rambling messages about how I was tearing their family apart. It's been overwhelming, to say the least. There were moments when I considered changing my phone number just to get some peace, but I didn't want to give them the satisfaction of knowing they'd gotten to me. Instead of dwelling on their threats, I've been focusing my energy on preparing a strong legal case against Rose. The day after she left, I started researching divorce lawyers in my area. I wanted someone who specialized in cases involving infidelity, someone who would fight for my rights and ensure I didn't get taken advantage of in the divorce proceedings. After a few consultations, I found a lawyer I felt comfortable with. Her name is Sarah, and she has a reputation for being a tough, no-nonsense attorney. When I told her my story and showed her the evidence I had gathered, she assured me we had a strong case. We've been working tirelessly to gather all the evidence and build a solid case. Sarah advised me to keep a record of all the harassing messages from Rose's family, as they could potentially be used to file a restraining order if necessary. She also helped me secure my financial accounts and advised me on how to handle shared assets. Yesterday, we officially filed for divorce, citing infidelity charges against Rose. It felt surreal signing those papers, seeing our names typed out in cold legal language. But it also felt like a step forward, a way of taking control of the situation. The divorce proceedings moved faster than I expected. Maybe it was because the evidence was so clear-cut, or maybe Rose didn't put up much of a fight. Either way, the judge ruled in my favor. The divorce was granted, and as Sarah had predicted, I didn't have to pay a cent in alimony to Rose. When the judge announced his decision, I felt a mix of emotions. Relief that it was over, sadness that my marriage had come to this, and a strange sense of emptiness. I had been so focused on getting through the divorce that I hadn't really thought about what would come after. You'd think that would be the end of it, right? Unfortunately, my in-laws didn't see it that way. Even after I won the case, they continued to harass me over the phone. They called me every name in the book, accused me of ruining their daughter's life, and threatened to make my life miserable. I tried to reason with them at first, explaining that it was Rose who had cheated, not me. But they wouldn't listen. They were convinced that I was the villain in this story. Rose's mother even showed up at my workplace one day, causing a scene in the lobby until security escorted her out. Eventually, I realized that there was no point in trying to change their minds. They were going to believe what they wanted to believe, regardless of the facts. So, I made the decision to block all of their numbers. It was a relief when the constant barrage of calls and messages finally stopped. Throughout this whole ordeal, my family has been my rock. They supported me from the moment I told them about Rose's infidelity. My sister, the one whose baby shower was where I first met Rose, was particularly supportive. She spent hours on the phone with me, letting me vent and cry when I needed to. She even offered to let me stay with her for a while if I needed a change of scenery. My friends have been great too. John and his wife, who initially informed me about Rose's affair, have been incredibly supportive. They've invited me over for dinner multiple times, making sure I'm not isolating myself. Other friends have stepped up too, offering to help me move, listening to me when I need to talk, and even setting me up with some casual dates to help me get back out there, though I'm not sure I'm ready for that yet. As the months passed, I slowly started to heal. I threw myself into my work, earning praise from my boss for my increased productivity. I picked up some new hobbies to keep myself busy. I started going to the gym regularly, finding that physical exercise helped clear my mind and improve my mood. I even started taking a cooking class, something I'd always wanted to do, but never had the time for when I was married. Perhaps most importantly, I started going to therapy to process everything that had happened. My therapist has been helping me work through my feelings of betrayal and anger, and teaching me how to trust again. It's been a slow process, but I can feel myself getting stronger and more confident with each session. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, I made a big decision. I had been saving up for years, originally planning to buy a house for Rose and me to start our family in. Now I decided to use that money to buy a house just for myself. It felt like a big step forward, a way of reclaiming my life and my future. The day I got the keys to my new house, I felt a sense of pride and accomplishment I hadn't felt in a long time. It wasn't a huge place, but it was mine. I spent weeks painting and decorating, turning it into a space that reflected who I am now. I decided to throw a small housewarming party to celebrate. As I was showing my family and friends around, I mentioned offhandedly that I had originally intended to buy this house for Rose and me. It was a bittersweet moment, acknowledging how much my life had changed, but also realizing how far I'd come. I didn't think much of that comment at the time, but apparently, word got back to Rose. A few days after the party, I received a call from an unknown number. When I answered, I was shocked to hear Rose's voice on the other end. She started crying almost immediately, telling me how much she missed me and how sorry she was for everything she had done. She begged me to give her another chance, saying she had made a terrible mistake and that she still loved me. I listened in silence, feeling a mix of emotions. Part of me was angry that she had the audacity to call me after everything she had done. Another part felt a twinge of the old feelings I had for her. But mostly, I felt pity. Pity for the woman who had thrown away our marriage for a fling with a yoga instructor. When she finally paused for breath, I spoke. I told her that I had given her plenty of chances during our marriage. I reminded her of how I had supported her, tried to build a future with her, only to have her betray me in the worst way possible. I told her about the pain I had gone through, the therapy sessions, the sleepless nights. I'm not going to lie, It wasn't easy to say what I said next, but I knew it was necessary. I told Rose not to contact me again. I told her that we were over, not just as a couple, but in every way. I wished her well, but made it clear that she was no longer a part of my life. Before she could respond, I ended the call and blocked the number. It felt like closing the final chapter on that part of my life. As I sit in my new house writing this update, I feel a sense of peace I haven't felt in a long time. The past year has been incredibly difficult, but I've come out stronger on the other side. I'm proud of myself for standing up for what I believe in, for not letting Rose or her family bully me into submission. I've learned a lot about myself through this process. I've learned that I'm stronger than I ever thought possible. I've learned the importance of self-respect and setting boundaries, and I've learned that it's okay to put myself first sometimes. I don't know what the future holds, but for the first time in a long time, I'm excited to find out. I'm focusing on myself, my career, and my happiness. And who knows, maybe someday I'll meet someone who shares my values and dreams. But for now, I'm content being on my own, healing and growing. To anyone out there going through something similar, I want you to know that it does get better. It's not easy, and there will be days when you feel like you can't go on. But you can, and you will. Surround yourself with people who support you, seek professional help if you need it, and most importantly, be kind to yourself. Thank you to everyone who read my original post and offered support and advice. Your kind words meant more to me than you could know. Here's to new beginnings and brighter tomorrows.